Hello guys, Omni here. Earlier today I saw Fast and Furious Presents Hobbs and Shaw starring Jason Statham and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, as well as Vanessa Kirby and Idris Elba as our genetically engineered superhuman villain. This movie is a prime example of how ridiculous this franchise has gotten. It started off being essentially a remake of Point Break, and a really grounded one is that at that. Like, I really do enjoy, actually I enjoyed this entire franchise, but it is completely a different beast than it was when it started. It had a very more humble kind of beginnings, much nothing completely out of the ordinary or beyond belief, for the most part, at least in the earlier films. Up until I would say 4 is really when it starts to kind of jump the shark with what they're doing. But when you have like an outstanding franchise like this that has gone past its original trilogy, going on to be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, with 9, 10, however many possible films coming down the line, eventually you do have to do something different, do something crazy to keep people engaged. It's always, you gotta always have to up the ante in your next film. If they were still doing street races and car chases and stuff like that, like in the first 2 films, or even Tokyo Drift, would people still be interested in it right now? If would it still be this much of a zeitgeist kind of franchise that people still swarm to the theaters to check out? Would it have attracted the number of stars that it has to its ranks over the years if it didn't kind of start to push those limits? This movie definitely, I know that recently the writer for the film has said that, they're still not ruling out space for a frontier for these movies to go into. And it's been brought up before. It was like, where are they going to go from now? They've jumped cars from buildings to buildings. They've airdropped cars out of planes. They've fought a nuclear submarine with cars. And now they're fighting genetically engineered superhumans. It is not above the reality of this world for them to, who knows, drive cars in space. Maybe we'll have a moon race where they're just driving their cars on the surface of the moon. Who knows? Maybe they'll go to Mars. I don't know what the heck is going on with the direction of this film franchise is going. I do feel like there's a big piece missing with Paul Walker having passed away, but they're still doing pretty decent. However, this movie can borderline be in the MCU for how ridiculous these characters are. You'll hear many people say that the characters in these movies now are borderline superheroes. They are unnaturally strong, durable, ridiculous feats of strength, agility, and just everything is kind of gone off the rails. Even to the point where the science fiction elements of it are getting to the point where we now have a genetically engineered superhuman kind of villain who is bent on working for yet another shadow organization that has ties to the team. This one is new from what I understand, at least. It's not tied to the Shaw Cypher kind of group that we were introduced to previously. But they are kind of going down that road with this kind of idea that mankind is destroying itself, and they're going to use this manufactured, synthesized virus, which they can program to target the genetics of anybody on the planet they would want it to target or affect or inflict. And that is kind of the crux of the story. Idris Elba and his organization are after this virus. They frame the sister of Deckard Shaw, played by Vanessa Kirby in this film, with having taken this virus and been on the run, killing her team. They frame her. That's what they've done, and it's just kind of like, that's the whole crux of the movie, is they bring in to find her. She's now a rogue MI6 agent that they need to track down, who is being framed or portrayed to have stolen this virus. So they get their best tracker, and then her brother, Deckard Shaw, and then Hobbs as our US CIA tracker, to come together and bring her in and find the truth of the matter, on top of the figure out what's going on with this black ops kind of hidden shadow organization running in the background, setting up all of this stuff, trying to frame these events. And You know, it's ridiculous. All of it is insanely ridiculous. But this movie is fun. This is a pure example of a popcorn movie. You get exactly what you're in for from the trailers. So if you didn't like the trailers, you didn't like how the trailers looked, you didn't look like the type of movie that the trailers were going to be portraying, that's the movie you're going to get, and you might not like it. Surprisingly enough, there is a lot of heart in this movie. I feel like The Rock and Jason Statham give some really good emotional performances in this when the story comes and calls for it. And Vanessa Kirby does an amazing job. She is not a damsel in distress. She is extremely capable, saving, just really kind of like coming into her own as well, and being more of a newcomer to this franchise as a yet another Shaw sibling that just kind of comes out of the woodwork as this franchise spins rapidly out of control. She does amazing work. Her performance is on point. The action she pulls off in this film is really good. She stands on her own with the team, and this movie is really kind of sold on the Hobbs and Shaw, since those are the characters that we know primarily from the series up until this point. But this movie is really a trio kind of thing. When it comes down into it, these three people are a unit that are working together to take down this organization and also clear her name for having been framed for these events that led to this virus getting out and all this stuff happening. And pretty much the entire crux of the film. This movie is ridiculous, and I feel like there's some bits in this film that could have probably been cut out. That just kind of, they linger for a little bit longer than I feel like they were needed, and I think it's mostly because there's two scenes that stand out in particular to me that probably could have just straight been removed. Maybe not removed completely, because they do kind of play a greater part later into the film and throughout, kind of setting up some things, setting up possibly another spinoff after this. But there's two really, well, one of them not surprising given the current relationships in real life with these people, these actors. But there's two cameos in this movie that completely, as far as like the Fast and Furious franchise, are completely out of left field for me. As if you're familiar with my reviews up until this point, I do not give spoilers, so I'm not going to say who they are. If you've looked it up on your own, you'll probably understand what I'm saying. But there are some really interesting cameos that I did not expect. One of which I think it's just classic that actor, and it was hilarious. I love how it played off, and it becomes a running joke even throughout the after credits. Another one is just completely like friend favor, and they show up, and I feel like their whole interaction is much longer than it needed to be. It probably could have been cut down, but it's purely because of this external, outside of the movie relationship, that I feel like this made it into the movie at all. But it ended up working into the plot, or at least kind of seeding the plot for later to make some events play out the way they do. So I just think that this movie as a whole, the pace really kept going. The editing in this is fantastic. I think one of the best things about this film is a lot of the action and the hand-to-hand choreography, because they do, with these two action stars, they really go out of their way to not do kind of the cheap action kind of editing trick where it's just like cut. You don't really see the flow of the action. You lose track of where people are in the scenes. You don't really run into that problem with this, and I think you can follow all the action really well. There's still some speedy cuts here and there, but you never lose track of the actors or their competition, or where they are on the sets. And you really get to see all of the blows, the hits, just the action in general. I think is shot really well in this, when it's practical and it's not a CGI effect and a CGI car doing things a car really couldn't do. This movie really blows a lot of this out of the water. It's a whole lot of fun. It is stupid. It destroys all logic, reality, and physics. But if you're looking for a movie to turn your brain off, have a good time, have some laughs, see some action, get your blood pumping just a little bit for a summer film, this is probably going to be your movie. This is a good, solid film to go check out at the theater, have a good time, and just turn your brain off for a few hours to relax and just take in all of this stuff happening on the screen while enjoying some really good performances and expanding this Fast and Furious world beyond just the core family. And who knows? We'll see where this goes from here. It definitely is kind of setting up something else after this. We already know that there's another spinoff in the works with Charlize Theron's Cypher character, possibly getting her own spinoff. And, you know, there's so much more that is probably going to come out of this franchise. I can't remember how many they had agreed to sign on to do. I know 9 is currently being written. And they are kind of setting up this arc for Deckard Shaw, which the writer for this film came out and said ahead of time that they are setting up a Justice for Han story arc for Deckard, which is supposed to be the most rewarding, most fantastic, fulfilling character arc in the entire franchise, which I don't know how, with the character and the billing and how this is going and expanding with them kind of bringing him into the family and kind of bringing him onto the team. I don't know how that's going to work with the Justice for Han thing, because that's still the biggest takeaway from Fate of the Furious was they just forgave this dude and he killed Han. I love Han. The moment we found out that this guy it wasn't a freak accident that took out Han, that it was this guy that killed him, I was like, Justice for Han. Justice for Han, get him. And there's a throwaway line in this. I don't even know if you would consider a throwaway, but the writer of this movie had spoiled this whole little not this section, but this line in the film where there's a point in the movie where Shaw explains that there's some things that he's done in his life that he needs to make amends for. And the writer clearly says in this moment he's talking about Han. And I don't know what, short of getting killed, sacrificing himself, or going to prison for life, would really justify any of the satiation that anybody needs for the Justice for Han thing. You know, what would you want for Deckard Shaw to make amends or repent for what he did to Han? Because that was just cold-blooded murder. For what they did to his brother, given they didn't even kill his brother in that moment. So it's like, what even is going on? I don't know. I don't know what direction that it can go on to satisfy the people that still feel like he hasn't earned the kind of penance for what he did in that act. And also the counterpoint of the people who are fans of him now, and this kind of more him being in the hero spotlight as part of the good guys, where that'll go out, because they're gonna have to kind of make a balance between the two. And I don't think that, short of him living, surviving, not being executed, going to jail for life, or something along those lines, I don't know how you satisfy both of those camps. And there's a camp for both sides of this argument, and I'm somewhere in the middle. Like, I do still feel like that is a lingering part of the story that they've just kind of ignored after Fate of the Furious, and I would like it to be addressed, but I don't know if there's a satisfying way to keep Deckard Shaw in the picture and progress and make this a satisfying Justice for Han kind of arc. Does that matter in the long run? Who knows? Probably not, but with the way the franchise is going, there's no way they're going to cut Jason Statham out at this point. He's going to be a major player going forward if they just do this, unless they spin Hobbs off by himself or Deckard Shaw off by himself and then let that play out the way it does. I don't see either of those things happening. I really do think we'll get like a Hobbs and Shaw 2, and this will be like their own unit kind of thing. I don't know. This is just speculation. There's nothing set in stone right now. What do you guys think? If you're a fan of this franchise, what do you think about Deckard Shaw moving forward here after still having been the cold blood murderer of Han in this situation, and where this goes from here. Is there a way to reconcile this satisfactorily to satisfy both camps? What do you guys think? Aside from that, I know we kind of got a little bit off topic. I want to know what you guys thought of the film. What did you, if you've seen it, what did you think of it? Or what are your feelings of where the Fast and Furious franchise is going now? Leave all your thoughts in the comments down below. If you like this video, support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. If you didn't like it, let me know in the comments what you didn't like. If you didn't like the movie, let me know in the comments what you didn't like. Anyway, guys, that is it for now. I will catch you guys in the next video. Take care.